Well, joining me right now in studio is Washington De Gea, the chairman for Bima Intermediaries. Many thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Abby.
New year, new expectations. What are your expectations for the insurance industry?
Well, there is every year, insurance uptake actually goes up every year in terms of the premiums taken. That's why we find every year we have something like 10% growth in terms of insurance. But what the main thing that we should be looking at, Abby, is really insurance coming up to the expectation of the insured, so to speak. Because the issue of claims is still a big thing. Much as we expect growth, if claims are being met the way they're supposed to be, the growth would be far much higher than what we would expect, for example, this year. Mm-hmm. So there's still a lot of room for the insurance industry to pull up its socks, so to speak.
All right. Speaking about the insurance sector to pull up its socks, we've seen a very spirited campaign from the big insurance companies just trying to launch micro products. There's been also Bancassurance where they're partnering with banks. Is it working?
Well, the issue of banks in Kenya and insurance has been a big issue. Because all we feel, we as industry players and we as intermediaries, is banks should not have gotten into insurance in the first place. Because if you look at the growth of insurance, banks are supposed to come in to improve on insurance penetration in this country. But you find it hasn't actually happened in real sense. Instead, what we find is a lot of acrimony between banks and intermediaries, with the claims that banks are actually eating into our business. Banks are stealing our customers. Banks are actually not following on the laid down rules for doing insurance broking in this country. And there's a general feeling in the insurance industry that it was actually hurried, and it shouldn't have, there should have been time, more time should have been taken to introduce banks into insurance.
So are you saying you are not optimistic about growth of Bancassurance?
You see, the thing with Bancassurance is there's a lot of what we call coercion, and I start to be challenged on this. There's a lot of coercion by the banks to their customers to force them to take up insurance up with them. If every day you hear insurance intermediaries losing business to banks, and the business is not lost in a fair way, and you see how banks come into insurance is this: when they give you a loan, the loan is supposed to be insured.
All right.
So the banks are doing it by force, regardless of whether the client has another insurance agent or not, so to speak. So you find there's a lot of, this acrimonious relationship between us is what is actually even, we can say, has even stagnated growth. You know? Banks, they'll continue getting business, but how are they getting the business? That's the most pertinent question you should be asking.
Quite a very big claim you're making there.
Very big.
But of course, the banks will also have their day to respond. But let's move the conversation forward, Washington. We've also seen the sector facing serious fraud, where there are those claims that you cannot substantiate. How is the industry dealing with the fraudulent claims where there's collusion and, of course, there's leakage in the system?
The issue of fraud, Abby, one thing that we talk about, fraud is perpetrated by the players themselves. And I can say the insurance intermediaries, especially the insurance agents, have not been left out. These are collusion between, of course, the insiders, that is the employees of the insurance companies, and the outsiders, that is the insurance agents. Because no client has the sophistication to perpetrate fraud. It's got to be, those two people have to be involved. Now, when you come to our side as insurance agents, with this, something we've been saying all along, that the commissioner, or rather the regulator, needs to come in and clamp down on the rogue insurance agents in this market. because there are many and there are thousands. That's something that we've been looking at and we've been claiming for the last 4 years. That why does a regulator come in and clamp down on these people? You know? Because every day you hear fraudsters, you hear even premiums have been misappropriated by people who claim to be insurance agents. Let me say, they are not insurance agents. They are basically conmen in the industry, and they are quite a number. Now, when it comes to, they're the same people actually who perpetrate the same fraud. Because you don't expect a really professional insurance agent or insurance broker doing the same.
All right.
Because you need, I mean, a professional looks at the future. You don't look at the short-term gains that you get from that.
Interesting. And finally, speaking about the future, Washington, of course, many companies are also bypassing intermediaries by having online platforms where people can actually buy insurance directly. How will this impact on your business as we close?
That's a good question, because very many insurance companies have come up with portals where people can log in directly and buy insurance. You know, they even have a claim that should you have a claim, should you lodge a claim with the insurance company, you can be able to follow it up through the portal. But what we found out is insurance is very, very personal and very, very technical. You can log in and buy a cover, but the day of reckoning comes when there's a claim. You know, that's when you remember that you actually don't know what you did, and you need to go back to your broker or insurance agent to help to guide you in the steps. That is what the public is not all about. You're told log in, buy a cover, compare between different companies. But the day of the claim, because even right now, even with the insurance agent, it's still a hassle getting your claim met. What about if you don't have an insurance agent to do that for you? And like we say right now, there are very, very many insurance companies right now not meeting their obligations or paying claims. There are very, very frustrated clients in the industry not having their claims met. You know? So we can say that is a step that has been taken, we have jumped the gun, so to speak. This economy is not yet ready for those kind of portals. But remember, technology is good, especially for us intermediaries. We are using it very, very much to make our work easier to get clients. It's good for us. But we would not really recommend that our clients go in and log in directly. They are bound always to make mistakes. They are bound to regret at the end of the day.
All right, so there are still gaps in the system.
Very many gaps.
Thank you so much, Washington Degea, for sparing time with us to talk on this very important subject. Well, let's now take you to the DRC.